Sagt der Heilige Mishnah, we are at the bottom of the Amud of Daf Tezvav Amud Beis. Shvua she'eni yashan. Person takes an oath that I will not sleep. She'eni medaber, that I will not speak. She'eni mahalech, that I will not walk. Aser. So he's aser. The shvua takes effect. Just to take notice of the difference between the lashon that you say here and the lashon that it said earlier in a similar Mishnah, the previous Mishnah, when it said a neder. In the previous Mishnah it said kainam sha'ani yashan. Because over there, because it's talking about a neder does not relate to the person, that I will not. It relates to the eyes or the mouth, or it has to go on an object. Over here though, a shvuah goes on the person. I will refrain from sleeping. So she'eini, that's why over here, that's the ger says, that Ran explains. Now if a person says, in a lashon of a shvuah, carbon loy oichalach. A carbon, I make a shvuah in a carbon, that I will not eat. Okay, so this is a shvuah that does not take effect, because you can't make a shvuah in a carbon. We spoke about this before already in one of the Mishnahs, that a shvuah has to be, a proper shvuah is in the name of Hashem. You don't have to spell it out, that you're saying it in the name of Hashem, but that's what a shvuah is. To make a shvuah in the existence of a carbon doesn't come in by the subject of a shvuah. By a neder, so the isser of a neder comes from the isser of a carbon. But by a shvuah, you can't say that I'm making a shvuah in the existence of a carbon. Doesn't work. That's if that's what the person meant. I mean, that's the way that Ran explains this. Okay. Now, if a person said ha carbon sha'ichalach, this will be a carbon, what I will eat from you. So this is also something that does not take effect. And we had this already before in the Gemara. When a person says ha carbon, the word ha carbon also means the life of the carbon, the existence of the carbon. I'm making a shvuah or even a neder, that doesn't work in such a way. When you say ha carbon, in the life of the carbon, it's not even referring to the fact that the carbon is an object which is aser. So it doesn't take effect either. If a person says loy carbon, loy oichalach, it should not be a carbon, what I do not eat from you, so then mutter. Then this will also be mutter, and this is something we had a few times before in the Gemara, that in such a case, you might think that he's saying the negative. What he's saying is, what I will not eat from you will not be a carbon. So maybe you could understand from that the positive. What I will eat from you will be a carbon. But this Mishnah and other Mishnahs we had before follows Rab Meir's opinion that says that we don't say miklalav atashmei hein. So since he only said the negative, we don't understand from that the positive, that what I will eat from you will be a carbon. So the Gemara, Mani Masnisen, Rab Meir, who is our Mishnah? Our Mishnah is Rab Meir. And the Gemara actually proves this from the ratio of the Mishnah. Even though the Gemara could have proved this from the Seifa, but the Gemara proves it from the ratio of the Mishnah. Because the Rab Yehuda, if it would be going according to Rab Yehuda, Loi shani le carbon, v'loi shani le ha-carbon. According to Rab Yehuda, there's no difference. We had earlier in the Mishnayos, there's no difference between the lashon of carbon or ha-carbon. What did it say here in the Mishnah? The Mishnah said if a person says ha-carbon sha'ichalach, then the shvuah does not take effect, or the neder does not take effect. What is a mashma from a Mishnah? It's only because he said ha-carbon. Ha-carbon refers to the existence of the life of this behemoth. It doesn't refer to the isser of it. What's if you would have said carbon sha'ichalach? So then it would take effect without the ha. Carbon sha'ichalach does work. But the thing is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't make a difference. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you must say, I don't know if you remember, we learned before in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says you have to say kek carbon. Only if you say with a chaf, then it takes effect. In this Mishnah, it's mashma even without the chaf. Even if you just say carbon shaychalach, it will take effect. So the Gemara says, the Rabbi Yehuda leishani le carbon v'leishani le ha-carbon. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it shouldn't make any difference whether you say carbon, whether you say ha-carbon. Either way, it should not take effect. You must say the chaf, kek carbon. Only then does it take effect. So we know that our Mishnah here in the Reisha, or it's actually the second case of the Mishnah, this is Rab Meir. Now, what did it say in the last case of the Mishnah? It said in the Mishnah, lik carbon loyachalach, so mutter. So he's mutter. Why? Because I don't say that from the negative I understand the positive. But the question is, what's nan? And this is something the Gemara repeated already a few times, and the Gemara says it here again. We had before in the Mishnah, it said, if a person says, lik carbon loyachalach, this exact lashon, Rab Meir oiser. Rab Meir says it's aser. Now, why does Rab Meir say it's aser? Even though Rab Meir is the one that says, I do not say miklal avat shemei heng. So the reason is, V'amar Rab Abba nase ke'oime lekarbin yehei. Because when a person says lekarbin, loy eichelach, what is he saying? He's supposed to divide his statement into two. When he says lekarbin, it means lekarbin yehei, that this food here should be like a carbon. And then when he says loy eichelach, what he's saying is lefichach loy eichelach, therefore I will not eat it. The loy eichelach is not referring to the food that he's not going to be eating. It's saying the result, therefore I will not eat it. So if so, the question is, why does it say in our Mishnah, if a person says loy carbon loy eichelach, that it does not take effect? Why don't I say that what this means is, in the Mishnah over here, I should say, okay, let lik carbon, okay, in our Mishnah actually the girsa is loy carbon, right? But the Gemara, so if you look over here, the girsa, most Rishonim are guided in the Mishnah lik carbon, right? In our Mishnah says loy carbon, but most Rishonim are guided in the Mishnah lik carbon, and that's why it's asking a question. That earlier we learned that Rav Meir says lik carbon loy eichelach is aser. And here, if you guide us in the Mishnah, lik carbon loy eichelach, it says that it's mutter. So why is it mutter? So the Gemara answers, loy kashi, it's not a question. Ha da'ama lik carbon, if the person says lik carbon, then it will be aser, because we're going to say lik carbon yehei, and therefore I will not eat it. And ha da'ama, like we have it before in the gears of our Mishnah over here, it says a drop different. Ha da'ama loy lik carbon. So if he says loy, if he spells out the word loy, it should not be a carbon. So then let's say the loy have a carbon come out. What he's saying is that it should not be a carbon. And therefore, he's saying what I'm not eating will not be a carbon. And we don't understand from that the positive that what he will eat will be a carbon. So it's no contradiction.
It's a neder then.
Yeah, it looks like it's a language of a neder, but this neder does not take effect. Correct. So this Mishnah is talking about different lashonos that are used for a shvuah. And these kinds of shvuas, these kinds of lashonos, when they're used regarding a neder, will not work, but regarding a shvuah, it will work. Shvuah lo yechelach, if a person makes a shvuah that I will not eat, he takes an oath not to eat. So that's a very straightforward lashon for a shvuah. Now, by a neder, not necessarily does such a kind of a lashon work. By a neder, if you say carbon lo yechelach, as we said before, if you don't say kick carbon, it doesn't necessarily work. But by a shvuah, it does work. Or if a person says ha shvuah shayechelach, this is a shvuah, what I eat from you. So this is also going to be a shvuah that he will not be allowed to eat. So again, the Mishnah is trying to contrast this to a neder. By a neder, if a person says ha carbon, as we just learned before, it does not take effect. And if a person says loy shvuah, loy eichelach, it will not be a shvuah, what I will not eat from you, also asa. That over there, it's also going to take effect, it's also going to be asa. Now this is not so easy to understand, because when a person says loy shvuah loy eichelach, why should it be aser? He's saying what I'm not eating will not be a shvuah. So why should it be aser for him to eat? So the only way to explain this is to say miklal lavat shmei hein. He said the negative. He said what I'm not eating will not be a shvuah. So you understand that what he will eat, there is a shvuah. But the problem is the Mishnah before we just said that it goes according to Rab Meir that does not hold of miklal lavat shmei hein. Why suddenly here by the shvuah do we say miklal lavat shmei hein? So the Tosfos answers that it's true, that usually Rab Meir holds we don't say Miklal Lavat Shmei Hein, but as we'll see later in the Gemara, later in this Masechta, a shvuah is more stringent than a neder. And therefore Rab Meir is going to be made regarding a shvuah, it's more chomer, and therefore we do apply Miklal Lavat Shmei Hein. That's what Tosfos says. The Ran explains more a svara to this. The Ran says the rule of Miklal Lavat Shmei Hein, or whether we do say it, whether we don't say it. Rab Meir says we don't say Miklal Lavat Shmei Hein. Where is that? Only really regarding money matters, because it comes from the shvuah of Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, where it was a question of inheritance, of a territory, of an area that they would own. And therefore he says only by a neder which has a monetary aspect to it do we say that Rab Meir doesn't hold Miklal Lavat Shmei Hein. Because when you make a neder, the neder pertains to an object. This object now becomes aser. So it sort of affects the value of the object itself. You're applying, what you're saying applies to the actual chefza. So therefore Rab Meir there holds you can't say Miklal Lavat Shmei Hein. When it comes to a shvuah is completely a matter of isser. That I will be aser to do this, or I will be aser to eat. Regarding a subject of isser, the shitta of Rab Meir, that you do not say Miklal Lavat Shmei Hein, doesn't apply. Regarding isser, Rab Meir will be made that if you say loy shvuah loy eichelach, that it will be aser. That's the Ran's pshat in this Mishnah. Okay, so the Gemara now is going to focus actually on the middle case of the Mishnah. What did it say? When a person says ha shvuah she eichelach, so what happens? He's going to be aser to eat. Klal from the Mishnah, I understand the ha shvuah she eichelach. What a person says that this is a shvua. I'm taking an oath, she'oichalach, of what I will eat. What does this mean? What he's actually trying to say is, I'm taking an oath regarding the food that I'm eating, that I will not eat it. That's what this expression means. But for Aminu, I'll ask you a contradiction from the Mishnah in Shavuos. The Mishnah there says, Shavuos shtaim shein arba, there are two kinds of Shavuos that actually are divided into four. What are these four different types of Shavuos? Sha'eichel v'shaloi eichel. One is the future tense. If a person says regarding the future, what I will eat, what I will not eat. And that's learned out from the lashon of the pasuk. When the pasuk says a person makes a shvuah, it says lahara elahetiv, which is future tense, and the positive or the negative. And then there's a drasha that you learn out that a person can make a shvuah and it will take effect even regarding the past. She'achalti v'shaloi achalti. If a person makes a shvuah that he ate in the past, or he makes a shvuah that he did not eat in the past, so if it turns out what he said is false, so then he's over on this shvuah as well. So what do we see here from this Mishnah? The Gemara is focusing on this, that it says that a person makes a shvuah in the positive, that he will eat. What is the expression that a person says when he's making a shvuah in the positive? A shvuah she'oichel. That means that he actually has to eat. So now midika Omar, since it says there in the Mishnah, the Bach puts in over here, that he made the shvuah she'oichel v'shaloi oichel she'achalti v'shaloi achalti meklal. What do we understand from that Mishnah? The she'oichel lach, when a person makes a shvuah that I will eat from you, da'achilna mashma. That means that he will eat. So the question is, in our Mishnah it said, when a person says ha shvuah she'oichel lach, it means he's making a shvuah regarding eating, and he will not eat. So what does this lashon mean? Amar Abaye, so Abaye answers, it depends on the circumstance. She'oichel shtei l'shainis mashma. If a person says in his shvuah she'oichel, it could mean either or, and it depends on what happened here. If the case is that somebody was trying to persuade him to eat, was begging him to eat, and he says, yes, I'll eat. And then v'su, he says even more so, shvuah she'oichel, I swear that I'll eat. So then, da'achilna mashma. So from the circumstance, you see that what is this shvuah? He's saying, I'm going to eat. Aval, Omar, lo yachilna. Someone is trying to force him to eat, and he says, I'm not going to eat. And then he says, v'su, even more so, Omar, shvuah she'oichel. A shvuah regarding this food, of eating this food. What does he mean? He doesn't mean a shvuah that I will eat. He means, I make a shvuah regarding this food that I will not eat it. The lo yachilna kama. So he means to say that he will not eat it. So basically what Abaye is saying is, our Mishnah here that says shvuah she'oichalach, that it means he will not eat, the circumstance was that someone was trying to force him to eat, and he clearly said before that I will not eat. So therefore then when he says shvuah she'oichel, it means... Again?
So why does it say shvuah she'oichel?
Shvuah she'oichel. She'oichel means I make a shvuah regarding this food that you want me to eat. So he means that he will not eat it. He just said a second ago, lo yachilna. Right? So in such a case, it's clear that he means that he will not eat it. Rav Ashi gives a different answer. She'oichel, the shvuah, when it says in our Mishnah that he makes a shvuah she'oichel, and it means that he will not eat, what he actually said is she'i oichel ka'ama. The way to read the Mishnah is, what the person actually said is she'i oichel, which means I will not eat. That's what he said. Okay, so we should have to read the Mishnah differently. Frek the Gemara, but if that's what he said, then came pshita. Obviously he means that he will not eat. Ma'ila memra, what's the chiddush of the Mishnah to say that in such a case the shvuah means that he will not eat? Says the Gemara, it's not so obvious, because ma'od deteme, maybe I would think to say make him lishnehi, that he got stuck in his tongue, in his words, or the Ran is actually good to say me'akim lishnehi, that his words came out unclear. The iskale, because he got tongue twisted, or he got whatever. He, instead of saying she'oichalach, he really wanted to say she'oichalach, but instead he said she'oichalach. But really he means to say she'oichalach. Maybe that's what he said. Now the Ran explains, why should I come and think such a thing, that a person's tongue got tied or whatever, he couldn't speak clearly? Because the word she'i oichalach is not the common way of saying this. How do you usually say if you don't want to eat? You say shaloi oichalach. Why didn't he say loy? Why did he say she'i oichel? It's unusual. So because it's an unusual expression, maybe we could say that he really meant to say she'oichalach. Kamash malon, that's why our Mishnah says, according to Rav Ashi, that she'i oichalach means I will not eat from you. Sagt the Gemara, Abaye loya matam ke Rav Ashi. Abaye did not want to give Rav Ashi's answer, or did Rav Ashi? The lekatani she'i oichel, because Rav Ashi is changing the words of the Mishnah. He says the Mishnah meant to say she'i oichel, but it's not what it says in the Mishnah. It says she'oichel. But Rav Ashi nodim in tam da Abaye, and Rav Ashi moved away. He didn't accept the answer of Abaye. That it depends on the circumstance. And our Mishnah is speaking specifically about a circumstance where he said before this that he will not eat. Because Kasavar, Abaye says, look, if you're going to say that it depends on the circumstance, then just like Sha'aychel could be interpreted in two ways, that he does want to eat or he does not want to eat. It's the same thing with Shalayachel. Shalayachel could also be interpreted in the same two ways. Shalayachel nami mashma shtei l'shaynis. If a person says, I make a shvua that I will not eat, so then this could also be interpreted in two ways. And what is that? Similar to what we said before. If they were trying to convince him to eat, and he says, now according to our Gerson in the Gemara, the way to read this is that he responds to the person that's trying to force him to eat. Lo yachilna, you think I won't eat? Or according to it's mashma from the Ran, you just take out the word loy. He responded and said, achilna, I will eat. So he's making it clear that he wants to eat. And then v'amar nami shvua, and then he says, I make a shvua. Ben shoychel, ben shaloi oichel. Whether in the language of the shvua he says, I make a shvua that I will eat, or even if he says, I make a shvua that I will not eat, hadein achilna mashma. He means to say that he will eat. Hadein achilna mashma da'amar. He's saying that he's going to eat. Even if he said shvua shaloi oichel, you're going to have to say, what did he mean to say? I'm making a shvua. You think I won't eat? The shaloi oichel is just continuing the expression that he said before. You think, don't worry, you don't have to force me. You think I won't eat? So he says shvua shaloi oichel. I make a shvua that to make sure that I will eat. A shvua making sure that he is going to eat, not that he's not going to eat. So in other words, the point is that either way, the lashon of shaychel, the lashon of shaloi oichel, if you're going to say it based on the context of what happened, so you can interpret it both ways. And ve'ekel trutzinami lishne shvua shaloi oichel shvua deloi oichel nekom. And obviously, the term shaloi oichel could also mean that he's making a shvua that he will not eat. I mean, that's what it's more mashma literally. Shaloi oichel means that he's not going to eat. If before he said this shvua, he said I'm not going to eat, so then it means that he's not going to eat. So what's the point that the Gemara is trying to say over here? Abaye says, if you're going to start interpreting the language of a shvua based on the context of what happened before, whether he says sha'aychel, it can mean either or, that he will or will not eat, and whether he says shaloyachel, it can mean either or. And therefore, Elo, Tana, Pascha, the Tana is saying clear that if this is the case, the Tana should have said that it depends on the circumstance. He doesn't say this. The Tana says very clear, sha'aychel da achilna mashma. We have that mission over there in Shavuos where sha'aychel means he will eat. And v'shaloyachel, loyachel mashma. And shaloyachel, that means that he's not going to eat. So according to most Rishonim, the pshat in the Gemara here is, Abaye is disagreeing with Rav Ashi, Rav Ashi that is disagreeing with Abaye. And Rav Ashi says, when it comes to the language of a shvua, we're not going to interpret his words based on the circumstance. Even if he clearly said a second ago, I will not eat, but now he says a shvua that I will eat, the shvua is going to be that he will eat. We'll say that he changed his mind. We can't interpret the language of a shvua based on the circumstance. That's what most Rishonim say. Some Rishonim say that Rav Ashi agrees to the din of what Abaye said, but he just disagrees with the pshat in the Mishnah, because if this is what the Mishnah meant, the Mishnah should have spelled this out. The Mishnah doesn't make any chalukim in the circumstance, but he maybe does agree to the halacha that Abaye said. Sagt der Heilige Mishnah.
Because it says Linda in Neder.
Yeah.
Before you could say any lashon.
The Yodos by a Neder.
Yeah.
If there's a Yad by a Shvua, I don't.
So over here we're saying other words. We're saying
right. No, but this is not an issue of a Yad, because over here it's just he said a pretty clear lashon, Shaloi Eichel, but you just want to change what he meant to say because of the circumstance, right?
Yeah.
So that's a question. Could you change the explicit lashon that he said based on the circumstance and to say that he really meant the opposite? So that's what the machlokes here is between Abaye and Rav Ashi.
Who's he saying this true?
Himself, he's saying. People are listening to him. He's saying it.
So he knows what he said.
Doesn't matter. Remember, by a neder and a shvua, the lashon matters. He can be thinking in his mind that he's going to jump to the moon, but he has to say an actual lashon. The lashon. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure how that applies to Nedarim. By shvua, yeah. Okay, so now what we said before in the previous Mishnayos, and the Gemara is soon going to explain what this refers to. So this is a stringency that we find in a shvua regarding Nedarim. But now here is the chumrah of Nedarim more than shvuas. And this we had this before in the Gemara. Keitzad, what's the chumrah of a neder? Alma kainim sukkah shani yaisa. He's making a neder that the sukkah is not allowed for him to sit in it. Lulav shani noitlo, or this lulav that I'm not allowed to have this lulav. Tefillin shani maniach, or not to put on this tefillin. Nedarim aser. So when it comes to a neder, this neder takes effect and it does not allow him to fulfill the mitzvah. But b'shvuah mutter. When it comes to a shvuah, then the shvuah will not take effect. She'ein ishbon laver al mitzvahs. A person cannot take an oath to be mevatel a mitzvah. Right? And we explained this before already. The Gemara is going to explain it here again. The source of this halacha. Says the Gemara, chaymer miklal de neder. When you say that there's a chaymer, what does it say? That we're going on the case that it was in the previous Mishnah, and you're saying that there's a stringency, chaymer b'shvuas mi b'nedarim, that there's a stringency in the shvuah more than a neder. So what does it sound like? It sounds like that this is a stringency of the shvuah more than the neder, but it doesn't mean that the neder doesn't take effect at all. It's mashma that the neder also takes effect, but still the shvuah is more stringent. But the question is, mutter ketani. But it says that in such a case it would be mutter. So going back to the case, right now the Gemara is assuming that this goes on the previous Mishnah. What was the case of the previous Mishnah? A person says shvuah lo yechalach or ha shvuah. Those kind of terminologies, if he uses them regarding a neder, the neder doesn't take effect at all. It's completely mutter. If a person says carbon or ha-carbon, it doesn't take effect at all. So why is it saying the expression of chaymer, which is mashma that the shvuah is more chamer than the neder, but the neder is also still going to be an isser, but just not as stringent, if he uses those expressions, it's completely mutter. Mutter katani. Says the Gemara, Aseife de idach bavakatani. What this refers to is not the last Mishnah that we just learned, but it refers to the previous Mishnah. What did it say in the previous Mishnah? Shvuah she'eni yashan. Person makes a shvuah that I will not sleep. She'eni medaber, that I will not talk. She'eni mahalach, that I will not walk. So aser. And over here, if it's a shvuah, it will take effect, it will be aser. And zeh chayme b'shvuas mi b'nedarim. And this is the stringency of shvuas over nedarim. So the pshat of this Gemara, according to the Ran, is based on what we learned earlier in the Gemara. When a person says this kind of a lashon regarding a neder, that he says that he takes a neder upon himself, and he does not apply the neder to a specific object, even if minatayre, the shvuah, doesn't take effect. But if you remember, the Gemara before said, Ravina said that midirabbanon hareze b'lo yachal devara, he still should not desecrate the vow that he said. So therefore it's saying that shvuah is more chamer than a neder. Even by a neder it's going to be aser midirabbanon, but by a shvuah it's going to be aser minatayre. That's how the pshat over here. Okay, the next thing it said in the Mishnah is chayme b'nedarim b'shvuas regarding a mitzvah, that a neder could take effect on a mitzvah, but a shvuah cannot. Keitzad chulu. Rav Kahane masni, Omer Rav Gidl, Omer Rav, Rav Tavyemi masni, Omer Rav Gidl, Omer Shmuel. So it's an argument whether Rav said this or Shmuel said this. Minayin she'ein ishbon laver ala mitzvahs. From where do we know that you can't make a shvuah to be over on a mitzvah? Talmud Laima, so the limit is because the pasuk says regarding a shvuah lo yachel devarai, the one may not desecrate his words. Right, so the beginning of that pasuk is in that pasuk it actually speaks about both a neder and a shvuah. It says oy hishava shvuah leses al nafshe lo yachel devarai. So lo yachel devarai means that he should not desecrate his words. This means devarai lo yachel avol meichel ulechefte shemayim. If you're making a shvuah regarding something which is permissible, that you may not desecrate. But if it's regarding Cheftzei Shemayim, regarding a mitzvah, you don't have to keep your shvuah. It doesn't take effect. So the Gemara now asks on this, why does this go only on a shvuah? Ma'ishna neder, why is neder any different? Tichsiv ish ki yider neder lashem. In that same pasuk, it starts off ish ki yider neder lashem, and then it says lo yachal devarai, and therefore because regarding a neder, it says lashem. So from that we understand that even if you make a neder on something that belongs to the Eibishter, meaning a mitzvah, it does take effect. Shvuah nami, if so, in the shvuah, in that same pasuk it says, Haksiv oy hishava shvuah lashem, lo yachal dvarei. So maybe I should say from the word lashem that it says by a shvuah, I learn out that you're not allowed to desecrate your shvuah, and the shvuah does take effect even on a mitzvah. Omar Abaye, so Abaye answers, and here's the svara that we already learned before. Hada Omar hanoas sukkah alai. By a neder, what is the person saying? What the person saying by the neder is that the sukkah, the object of the sukkah becomes aser, and therefore I can't have any ano of it. So therefore, that's something that can take effect. But by a shvuah, it goes on the gavra, on the person. He's saying, I will not have ano from the sukkah. How could you say, I will not have ano from the sukkah? You have already a mitzvah from before to have ano from the sukkah, to sit in the sukkah. So therefore, in such a case, it will not take effect. So the Gemara, what Abai is saying over here is that ultimately, even that it's not only a limit from the pasuk, but the way we know to darshan the pasuk this way is because of this svara. That regarding a neder we say dvarai. That again, regarding the shvuah we say dvarai. Again, regarding a neder we say dvarai, and regarding a shvuah we say. Again, I'm sorry. Regarding a shvuah, that is. Regarding a shvuah, we say dvarai, and regarding a neder, we say yishav shvuah Hashem, because there's a difference if it's going on the object of the sukkah or it's going on the person. On this, the Gemara asks, Amar Rave v'chi mitzvahs lahanes nitnu. How could Abai, that is, use this expression and say that there's a difference in the language of the neder and the shvuah, that here he's saying that the hana of the object of the sukkah should be aser, and here he's saying, I will not have a hana from the sukkah, but regarding mitzvahs, there is no hana in mitzvahs at all. So if a person says, I will not have hana from the mitzvah, he should still be allowed to sit in the sukkah. Because when you sit in the sukkah, mitzvahs were not given for hana. Mitzvahs are Hashem's mitzvahs. So you should still be allowed to sit in the sukkah even after you make the shvuah. So how can he say that this will stop him, that the shvuah will take effect and he will not be allowed to sit in the sukkah? Elam Rava, so therefore Rava says basically the same point that Abai said, but without the concept of hana here. Hadama yeshiva sukkah olai. When you make a neder, so you're saying that the sukkah should be asur on me. The Ran actually clarifies when the Gemara uses this expression, yeshiva sukkah alai, this lashon is not exactly meduyik, it's not precise, because yeshiva sukkah still refers to the person, my sitting in the sukkah. But he says, he's going to have to actually say, kainam sukkah li yeshivasa, that he makes a neder that the sukkah should be asr for sitting in it. So it has to be clear that it pertains to the object of the sukkah. And and by the shvuah, he's saying that the shvuah is that I should not sit in the sukkah. So therefore the shvuah will not take effect, because he's mushpa vayim in Mahar Sinai, so it can't take effect. Okay, before I go weiter, just one point in this Gemara that I didn't explain. The Gemara spoke about this a few times, but the question becomes, what does this actually mean? Does this mean that the person cannot fulfill the mitzvah? If you say by a shvuah that it takes effect, so you cannot, again, by a neder that it takes effect, so does that mean that he cannot fulfill the mitzvah? So I did see in one place brought in the name of the Levush says that part of the svar of what the Gemara is saying, why by a neder it will take effect, is because even if you can't have, if you can't sit in this sukkah, but he could still do the mitzvah and sit in another sukkah. Mm-hmm. By a shvuah, when a person makes a shvuah that I will not sit in the sukkah, so then he can't sit in any sukkah. That's why by shvuah it will not take effect. So from him it's mashma that the only reason it takes effect by a neder is because he still will be able to fulfill the mitzvah. But the Rishayim clearly say that in such a case, when a person makes a neder, that he's not going to sit in the sukkah, even if it means any sukkah, or even if he doesn't have another sukkah, it doesn't matter. He cannot fulfill the mitzvah. And the question becomes, but don't we usually have a klal, esa deichel esa? He has the mitzvah to sit in the sukkah, and now he made a shvuah and is a lav, lo yachal devarai, so shouldn't that push off, shouldn't the esa of the mitzvah push off the lav? So the Rishayim say that when it comes to a shvuah, there's both a esa and a lois esa. Besides la yachal dvarai, there's also mitzvah sasecha tishmar, which is a esa and a lois esa. So once you make the shvuah, or neder rather, by shvuah it doesn't take effect. When you make the neder, so now the mitzvah is going to be pushed off because it's a esa and a lois esa. That's what it comes out from the Gemara saying here. Okay, let's just complete the inyan. The Gemara brings that there's really another source for this, that you can't make a shvuah on a mitzvah. Are you learning it out from this pasuk because it says devar roi, and therefore it does not conclude a mitzvah, which is cheftzis shemayim? But mehasam nafkele, we learn it out from another place. The Tanya in Abraisa we learned yochel nishbal levatlas a mitzvah. I would think if a person swears to be mevatel a mitzvah, v'loi bittul, and he was not mevatel the mitzvah, he did not keep his shvuah, yochel yeh chayiv, I would think that this person would be chayiv, the shvuah took effect. Talmud Laima, the pasuk says, laharai lahetiv, that the shvuah is for something that's for the negative or for the positive. Ma tava rishos, afara rishos. So just like hatava, when a person makes a shvuah to do something, it's only in the area of rishos. You can't make a shvuah to do something which is an aveda. Afara rishos, so too if you're saying a shvuah to not do something, it has to be in the area of rishos, not regarding a mitzvah, to stop you from doing a mitzvah. Yatsa nishba levatlis a mitzvah. So this excludes a person that makes a shvuah to nullify a mitzvah. V'loi bittul, and he did not go ahead and follow his shvuah to be mevatel the mitzvah. She'ein reshus biyadis. So then the shvuah didn't take effect because he doesn't have the reshus to be mevatel this mitzvah. So we're learning it out from a different pasuk, from lahara or lahetiv, not from the pasuk we brought before that it said devarai. So the Gemara answers, we need two different psukim. Chat kra lemiftere mikarben shvua. One pasuk is here to pater him from a carbon shvua. By a shvua, if a person b'sheigig did not keep a shvua, you have to bring a carbon. So one pasuk is saying that if it was regarding a mitzvah, he will not have to bring a carbon. And the chad lemiftere min lav the shvua. And the other one is to pater him that there is no lav for the shvua. The pasuk that we brought before, Layachal Devare, tells you that there is no lav if the shvua was regarding a mitzvah. So the way that Rishonim explain this Gemara, and the simple pshat of the Gemara, it's hard to understand, because if there is no lav, so then how could there be a carbon? You weren't over on any lav, so Rishayik, there shouldn't be a carbon either. So some Rishonim say there are situations where the shvua will take effect, even if it's on a mitzvah. And that is, if you didn't make a shvua directly on the mitzvah. Let's say a person makes a shvua on the night of Pesach, I will not eat. So he didn't make a shvua specifically regarding matzah. He made a shvua that he will not eat, but that will include also matzah, because it's eating. So in such a case, the shvua will take effect, and there will actually be a lav if he eats the matzah. It's regarding that case that we have another pasuk to say that even though it is a lav, but nevertheless there won't be a chiyuv carbon on the shvua in that case. That's why we need another pasuk.